4 years ago, right here, I shared my testimony of how people connected through the internet came together to save my life. My faith that God is just what happens when humanity is connected, that each one of us is a creator, and together we are the creator. And yes, the internet is still my religion, but what the heck does that even mean, right? So the Garden of Eden, let's start there. The God of the Bible created this beautiful garden for Adam and Eve with everything they could ever want. It was perfect. And he asked of them only one thing. Do not eat the fruit from the tree in the center of the garden, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. That's it, one rule. So then along comes Satan, and he offers Eve an apple from that exact tree, of course. Eve immediately says no, and explains what God had said. And Satan laughed at her, no, you're not going to die. If you eat this apple, you will know everything. That's why God doesn't want you to eat it. You will be wise and powerful. You will be able to decide for yourself what is right and what is wrong. You will be just like God. So she ate the apple. So did Adam. God was testing Adam and Eve, and they failed. So God judges and punishes them. But he doesn't just punish them. He punishes all of humanity. Generation after generation, banished from the perfect garden and forced to live hard, tough lives on planet Earth. And he wasn't just getting started. Just a couple of chapters later, he nearly wiped out all of humanity in a flood. It's pretty intense. The God of the Bible did many great and wonderful things, but he could also be a judgmental, punishing jerk. And so can we. One of the reasons this creation myth has stuck with us for so long is because it represents our greatest collective aspiration, to be as all-knowing and powerful as God. We've been chasing that dream for millennia, and we did it. We created the internet. With it, we are all-knowing, all-powerful, and omnipresent. It's even in my pocket on a piece of glass with an apple, missing one bite. We now conduct awe-inspiring miracles. We can donate our time, money, and networks so anyone can achieve their purpose. We can flood an arcade made of cardboard with customers. We can give a dog to a diabetic so he doesn't die in his sleep. We can turn a city into Gotham so a child can be Batman. But that very same power can take 140 characters of satire out of context and crucify a PR executive. It can get the driver of a hearse fired for craving a donut. It can ruin the greatest achievement of a scientist's life simply because of what he was wearing. Talk about the punishment not fitting the crime. We can humiliate someone, we can destroy their lives, and we can do it in 10 minutes. God is just what happens when humanity is connected. Sometimes, my God is an asshole. But what's different about my faith, different than other faiths, is that we're all co-creating God. We don't have to be assholes. We get to decide what kind of God we want to be. We get to decide if we'll be the creator or the destroyer. Like me, my father is a coder, but it's probably not too surprising, but he's like an off-the-charts genius coder. When I was a kid, I would sit next to him all the time and watch him program. And one day, when I was about 10, I noticed there was this character he kept using over and over again. And so I pointed to the mysterious mark above the 3 on the keyboard, and I asked him, what is that called? He said, some people call it the number sign, but I call it pound. No one really agrees on what to call that symbol. In fact, no one's really even sure where it originated from either. It just kind of seems to have always existed. The octothorpe was first used in modern times to sort of represent, to fill an otherwise blank space on the touch-tone phone. Today, hashtags are used to start something. You can put anything after it, and what follows becomes a community, a movement, something that matters. It has become the symbol of the internet. And for me, it is the symbol of my faith that people connected can create a new world. For those of us who believe this, then what do we do, right? How do we become the greatest God we can be? So there are 3 commitments. Anyone can make them. The first is finding the thing that you are meant to contribute. Every one of us has something special and unique, something that no one else has. It's our job to find what that thing is for ourselves. The second is offering that to the world. That's what my dad did over 30 years ago. He found the thing that he was meant to contribute, and he tried to offer it. It's almost an unbelievable story. It was the early 80s. My dad worked at IBM. It was the world's then largest computer company, and they just released the PC, their answer to the wildly popular Apple II computer. And the problem was that they didn't have any software for it, so the computer was going to be useless. So they started this company-wide program giving the opportunity for employees like my dad to write software and, if published, to receive royalties. Back then, computers were mainframes, giant room-filling machines that were shared by everyone. That was IBM's real business. The PC was just a toy, a silly little crap computer that could never do more than one thing at a time. At least that's what people thought, except for my dad and his buddy Larry. So while everyone else kind of went home at night and sort of watched TV, my dad and Larry would sort of work into the late hours on their Opus, Program Manager. My dad hacked the living crap out of the PC. He even rewrote the BIOS to get it to do what he wanted. And after about 6 months, in June of 1982, they started letting other folks in the company use it. Everyone was completely floored. What they'd accomplished was inconceivable. They created the first multitasking operating system for the IBM PC. Totally mind-blowing. By the end of the year, the higher-ups at the company understood that with Program Manager, they had their own operating system. They could ship it with every computer, and they wouldn't have to license one from outside the company. So my dad and Larry signed a contract with Don Estridge, the head of the PC division. They would get $11 for every copy sold. And my dad got this sweet job out at IBM's Almaden Research Center in Silicon Valley. Months later, the night before the movers were scheduled to come, my dad gets a call from Larry. He said, the deal's off. IBM's backing out. Program Manager is dead. IBM never expected to have their own operating system, let alone one far superior to everything else on the market. They already had a contract to ship DOS, and in the end, they decided that they didn't want to hurt their relationship with the new guy on the scene, Bill Gates, or his company, Microsoft. Historically, that moment was important given what happened as a result. Microsoft slaughtered IBM in the software business, and Bill Gates became the richest man in the world. But for my dad, it meant something far more personal. He believed in IBM. He gave them everything. And in one act of cowardice, his magnum opus was silenced. He tried. There was nothing he could do. He couldn't offer his creation to the world. It doesn't have to happen anymore. That world my parents lived in doesn't exist. The internet makes this story obsolete. Today, he'd put up a website. He'd sell it, or he'd open source it, or both. No one can deny you from offering your creation to the world anymore. No one, that is, except you. It takes courage, so much courage, to pour your heart into something and to put it out into the world, risking rejection and failure. But if you wimp out because school or society or your parents give you a really good reason why you should, then you're wasting your gift. And in my book, that's the only real sin. If you do not offer it, it will not exist in the world now or ever. Please do not deny us of what only you can create. Instead, make it bigger, as big as you can imagine, bigger than you could ever do by yourself, because you don't have to do it by yourself anymore. You can harness the gifts and talents of strangers you've never even met because they believe in your story, your vision, you. You can lead. Which brings us to the third commitment, being a leader for a connected humanity. I met a guy at a barbecue out in Silicon Valley. He introduced himself as the inventor of the boyfriend mechanic. And he was obviously proud of this, and so I asked him, what is that? He said, it's the component of an online game where you can claim your own virtual boyfriend. And as you play the game more, your hot boyfriend gets uglier and uglier. Meanwhile, you can see all of your friends who haven't started playing the game yet, and their boyfriends are super hot. The fastest way to make your boyfriend more attractive, to compete with your friends, is to pay for it. And so I asked him, so this is targeted at young girls, right? Yep. I've made millions off it. We can choose to exploit the worst in us: jealousy, insecurity, fear. Or we can choose to elevate the very best in us. We can shame someone, or we can forgive them. We can destroy someone's life, or we can help them become creators. That's what leadership is. Leadership for a connected humanity. It is choosing how to use our power. It used to be that someone had to bestow the mantle of leadership upon you, whether it was the queen or your boss or 50% plus one of voters. But today, anyone can be a leader. And if you make that leap, you can lead us to the promised land, bringing 5, 10, 50, a million other people with you, bringing us one giant step closer to being the greatest God we can be. And when you look down at that keyboard, if you share my faith, it doesn't matter if you go to church on Sunday morning. You don't have to sing a special song. You don't even have to, it doesn't even matter what else you believe in, really. Jesus, Allah, or the flying spaghetti monster. All that matters is that you make those 3 commitments. Find what you're meant to create, offer it to the world, and help others do the same. When you look down at that keyboard and you see the mysterious mark above the 3, it will remind you of those 3 commitments, your contribution to being the creator. And what does that world look like when every one of us is creating what we are meant to create? When instead of eating the apple, we start creating the trees? I have no idea, but I cannot wait to find out. Thank you.